Mhm. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hey, can you hear me?
Hear you on the phone. I can hear you.
Oh, wow. How are we going to do this?
It looks like you have to let me in.
How do I let you in?
Over my. There we are.
There you go. Okay. There we are. Hey there, guys. Hey,
Say
Whitney.
something.
Hi, can you hear me?
Can
You
you hear
can't hear
me?
me? Yeah, I can hear you. Let me see. Let's see. Settings, audio.
Real life, folks.
Sure.
Here we go. Real
Yeah.
life tech.
Yeah. You can't hear me. Oh boy. Oh
Mm-mm.
boy. Oh boy. Can any of the listeners hear me? I got you in. Let me see. Are you there now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh boy. Yeah, the listeners can hear me, but they can't hear
Can
you.
you hear me, EB?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Yes.
That's so weird. I'm going to leave and come back.
Okay. Well, hey there, Montez. Hey there, Lynn, Lauren, Michelle, Funge Vivi. I like that name. Lynn, Lauren, Michelle Austin. Okay. There we go. Okay. So let's see if Whitney gets back in. Hope everybody's having a good Tuesday. Hey, Mimi. Can you hear me now?
Mm-mm.
Everybody can hear you. This is strange.
My mic is working.
Yeah.
Oh, they can hear us both.
Well,
Everybody's saying.
yeah, they can. Lauren just said she just ordered my book. I meet you at Hilton Head at the book signing for
Hi,
Mandy. I met
Caitlin.
you. Good.
I can't hear
Caitlin,
Eric.
she can't hear me. So what should we do?
Oh my goodness. Hi, Mimi. Hi, Lauren. That's so wild.
Let me get Caitlin on the phone.
I'm not really sure how to do this if I can't hear Eric. I've got
No,
good questions for you.
you do. I know you do.
Subtitles. There we go, Lauren. That's a great suggestion. Lynn, I love that you're getting the book for Christmas.
Wendy
Oh,
Davis
love
said the
that.
book arrived today.
Subtitles is actually a really great idea. Is that something I can do on here?
So
I'm
Caitlin
not
didn't answer. Oh boy.
a tech person.
Should I try to get out and start over again?
Let's see.
But then we lose everybody.
Let's check.
Caitlin.
Are you able to? You click.
I did. I did. Everybody can hear
Can you hear me
me
now?
and Whitney,
No.
but
Okay.
I can hear her, but she can't hear me.
I have no idea why that's happening.
Well, should we?
Oh, I
Or I
know.
could call Whitney by phone and we could do it that way.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do that. Let me see.
Well, I'll tell you what. EB, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I cannot hear you, but I have some submitted questions. So until I figure it out on my end, I'm just going to ask you and let you interact with everybody. We've
Okay.
got a couple of fun things and I'll figure it out on the back end and we'll just roll with it because that's how life is sometimes, anything
That's
but
right.
planned. You hear what I'm
It's
saying?
like the
Um,
tango.
Thank you
You
guys
got
for joining
tango
us.
in it.
We have had such an exciting week. Eric's book opened, #1 in true crime, new release, and paperback, hardback, and ebook. So we were absolutely thrilled about that. We've kicked off the book tour, had an incredible, incredible time. I'm really excited for Eric to share some of the stories from that. And on a high note, while I'm figuring out the audio, EB, what was your favorite part of writing the book so far?
I think just doing the whole compendium of my life from when I was a child all the way through today. You forget about so much. So you have to start in the beginning and figure out what made me tick, how I decided to take the path that I did, and going through the childhood with the struggles that my parents had economically, and then how I had to find my way. I was headed down a bad path, and at that point, I had to make a decision. Am I going to make something of my life, or am I going to, you know, uh, go through the stereotype of, um, being a failure? Everybody bet against me. My brothers were very successful in school and in sports. And for me, it was, do I want to just fall into that path of everybody thinks that I'm going to blow an opportunity like I did when I was a kid? Am I going to go to college and flunk out? And so the probably the pivotal experience in my life was when I jumped out a 4-story window into a swimming pool, after I had been drinking and on a dare. And I survived, and I just kind of went over to the edge of the pool and looked up and said, that was just about the dumbest thing that I ever did. And how am I going to ever make anything of myself if I keep on making these bad decisions? So I made a promise to myself that I was not going to do those kind of things anymore. And it was 2 weeks into school. I hadn't even opened a book. I hadn't gone to a class, and I just buckled down. And that's where we kind of changed the trajectory. So I had 4 or 5 different events that the book talks about that shaped me into who I am today. But the most important things were, weightlifting and turning my body into something and turning me into something that couldn't be bullied anymore. And then, of course, marrying Renee was the greatest decision I ever made. You can't hear me, can you, Whitney? All right. What's your next question? Let me try to call you, Whitney, and see if that works.
Hi.
All right. Go ahead that way. Ask the
Where?
question.
Oh, okay, perfect. Here we go. Okay. I didn't know what was your favorite part.
Yeah,
of
I
the book.
said that essentially it was the whole compendium of my life, uh, deciding on, was I going to make something of myself, or was I going to fit into the stereotype of being a screw up where
Yeah.
everybody was betting against me? And so instead of people betting against me, I bet against myself.
Yep. I love that. And this was, such a like an intimate process for you to do. I think writing a memoir is one of the hardest things you can do because you're forced to confront all of the good, the bad, the ugly, all of these things. And it's just a really, really vulnerable space. And I encourage anybody who has ever thought about it to do the process. I think you had a really deeply moving experience doing it as well, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, they're getting an echo, because I got to listen to you.
Oh,
So trying to figure this out.
y'all are awesome.
Yeah. No, yeah, a little bit. So, marrying Renee again was the best decision I've ever made in my life. And that got me stable in my personal life so that once we were married, I could focus on my career. Um, being bullied as a kid made me want to help people that either were mistreated, bullied, either in an economic contract, commercial situation, or I've had a lot of insurance bad faith cases. It's kind of topical today because of the United Healthcare CEO getting shot. I represented a lot of people that were denied disability insurance as a result of an illness after they had paid premiums for years and years on end. And of course, the story in the book about Danny, my best friend, Big Danny, my best friend's a felon. His son, Dr. Daniel Snellgrove, had tumors that caused, uh, his ailment as a kid. He had, a problem with that, and they could not, get the insurance company to do experimental surgery on him. And Danny did what any father would do, which is, how am I going to round up the money to pay for it myself? My kid's got a little epilepsy here. I don't want to, him to die. So he stopped paying payroll taxes, sales taxes, took out loans, did anything a father would do to scratch and scrape to come up with $2 million in the early 1900s. I mean, not, at the end of the 1900s, in the beginning of the 2000s. And, Danny ended up going to jail, but his son was saved, and his son's a neurologist today in Charleston. So I am familiar with, insurance companies denying benefits to worthy individuals. And it just got on from there. Turned into legal malpractice when lawyers would turn on clients or would make mistakes or do something that was dishonest to a client, and instead of owning up to it, they would blame the client or blame somebody else. And the old uh, you know character uh, issues that my father taught me were always be honest. You can make a mistake, but don't make that mistake twice. And if you make a mistake, own up to it. My father always told me, do not judge people by the mistakes they made. Judge them how they react after they're told of the mistakes. And invariably, lawyers never own up to a mistake. They can always spin their way out of it. And so that got me into suing lawyers. And, it put me on a path like a collision course that we were ultimately going to meet up with somebody like Alex Murdaugh. Never envisioned it, but I had the skill set and the experience to take on somebody like Alex Murdaugh and the citadel of people that were in his life to seek redress for the victims of his fraud and theft.
Very cool. Danny's story is unbelievable. The ultimate display of the love of a father for a son. And we are actually going to have Danny and his son on the podcast coming up.
Yeah, we are going to have Danny and his son coming up on the Good Skill podcast.
If you guys aren't subscribed, definitely check into that because the story is incredible. Okay, rapid fire questions. And audience, I want everybody, if you've read the book, to answer this as well in the chat. Okay, Evie, if you had to describe anything but bland in 3 words, what would they be?
Um, Definitely not the 3 words. What would I say? Exciting. Right. I would say exciting, informative, and maybe motivating.
One in the chat, definitely point drop. Okay, what is one fun fact readers do?
Fun fact is, I talk to my dogs in a really, really strange voice that makes Renee laugh all the time. I talk to them like in dog talk. I make up words, and you know, I call them pouchettes and different things, and it's dog talk, and they respond to it. And Renee just sits there and says, "Here you are, a serious lawyer, and all you do is walk around the house and talk to your dogs in this dog talk." Um, it's it's a way of relaxing, and I love my dog, so that's a pretty good fact. Yeah.
Okay, next question. If your book were turned into a movie, who would you cast to play yourself?
Um, that guy John Barenthal, who he was in Punisher, and also he's in The Bear. He's the owner of the Chicago uh, steak, where they have the hot steaks, sandwiches. I love the show The Bear. Renee and I love it, and so I like John Barenthal. I would maybe a young Andy Garcia, possibly too. Uh, things to do in things to do in Denver before you die.
Dominic's got a question. What is your favorite part about living in South Carolina and staying in the country?
I like the fact that I can golf 10 and a half months out of the year. I really like the people. I think it's a kind place to live. In Philadelphia, we have a tendency to stab you from the front in a way. In South Carolina, they're not as mean to your face. So you don't hear a lot. I don't know what people are saying behind my back, but it's a very comfortable place to live. The people genuinely try to help each other out. And there is a lot to be said for Southern hospitality. The Low Country, I'm not so familiar with because I live in the Midlands, I practice in the Midlands, and it's a whole different world. I always was told that you couldn't break into the Charleston bar, that they think differently than Midlands and upstate attorneys do, and certainly I didn't have any experience in Hampton County or Beaufort or Hilton Head because you were just told stay out of there. That's Murdaugh country. So I like the seasonality that we have. We do get a great spring. We get a little bit of winter. I love the fall. We have a long summer. You have mountains an hour and a half away. You have the beach an hour and a half, 2 hours away. We have an airport that can take you anywhere, whether it's Columbia to Atlanta or Columbia to Charlotte. Charlotte, you go to anywhere in the world. So it's a pretty great place to live.
It really is. We have like 48 hours of winter, and that's about all I can handle. So I will just stuck here in the South forever. Thank you, Dominic, for that question. Lauren just moved to Beaufort, South Carolina, and I miss it. I am down in. It is beautiful down. We miss you too.
Yeah, we had a book signing event last weekend in Beaufort, and Renee and I went down there and we ate at the Wren restaurant and had the best chicken salad we've ever had. And the people were just very, very nice. Downtown Beaufort is just idyllic, and with the old houses and the moss coming off the live oaks, it's just a really warm place to live. I guess from raising a family.
Tell us what the most unexpected thing from this weekend's book signing. Well, it was so fun. What was the most unexpected thing for you this weekend? Is this the first one?
Just the just absolute kindness of the people that came. I mean, we had people that drove from Tennessee. We had another man that drove from Ohio. A beautiful lady came and she was nervous. She brought me lemon cookies. People that just wanted to tell me how much, the fight that Mandy and Liz and I have given to the Murdaugh matters and our attention, how much it's meant to them. And that, we're doing meaningful work. And the fact that people take time out of their busy day just to listen to me rant on Wednesday and Thursdays on my weekly updates, or listen to me on Good Skill Podcast. One of the hardest things for me is to accept compliments and think that I'm anything. I don't think I'm anything. When somebody tries to pay me a compliment, I feel like I just got punched in the face. I'd rather be punched in the face than get a compliment. And it was difficult for me to sit there and feel like I was important enough for people to want to come see me. I said to Renee on the way home in the car, it was very gratifying, but at the same time, I feel bad. I mean, it made myself feel bad, believe it or not.
Oh, we have a special guest.
There's Holbrook. Hey, Holbrook, how you doing?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
No, Lauren, we didn't go to Luther's. Is that a good place to go to, Whitney?
Right, so that's the bar where was.
Oh, okay.
Died. It's fine. I mean, everybody does have some and sweet. It's just picturesque. I think we were at down on Point Red, if anybody is down in Beaufort, and just an incredible bookstore. So really, really excited to be there. Question for Melissa: did you hear anything about how Maggie's family is doing, or the aftermath for the extended Murdaugh family and Alex conviction?
We saw Blanca. She came, the housewife, the house worker, excuse me, of the Murdaughs, who was very close with Maggie. She came to the book signing, and it was very nice. I had never spoken to her. I just said hello at the trial when I saw her, and she is the nicest woman. And she told me that Bubba now is 11 years old, the dog, and none of this would have happened but for Bubba. You remember he was on the video where, they were screaming, and, get the chicken out of your mouth or the guinea. Maggie said it was a guinea hen. He's 11 years old. He's blind. He has diabetes, and he suffers from seizures. And I asked, as Buster called her to just ask how the dog is doing, and she said she's never spoken to Buster since she got the dog, which was extraordinary to me.
Yeah.
I said to Renee, how could anybody, one, give away a dog? Because we're just such dog people, and most everybody on this, um, on who listens to us and follows us, are dog people or cat people. They're animal people, and I can understand if Buster couldn't have taken Bubba at the time, but I would think that he would want to keep up with a dog, that was 5 years old or 6 years old at the time, and he grew, that was in his house. So she said that she hasn't heard from any of the Murdaughs. Buster, of course, is suing for defamation against Netflix and a whole bunch of other production companies. And I actually saw his lawyer, Sean King, in court yesterday. I was in court because Russell Laffitte was had to appear after he got out of prison. He had to appear before a state judge, and they're trying to schedule his trial. Creighton Wooders is, and of course his attorneys Todd Rutherford and Mark Moore were trying to get it postponed and not get it scheduled, and doing everything in the book to delay what attorneys do when they really don't have a case. Delay. If you're innocent or not guilty, you're screaming at your attorneys, I want to go to court. I want to get my case tried. I want to, get out from the gauntlet of criminality. But so I saw him yesterday, but I have not seen Buster, haven't heard anything, nothing from John Marvin, um, and certainly nothing from Randolph who's still with PMPED. Well, actually, now it's the Parker Law Group. But it was good to see Blanco. She's just a beautiful, very nice, soft-spoken woman.
Robin, I felt so bad for Maggie's sister. I hope she's enjoying her grandchildren and happy. For sure, a lot of sadness in this case.
Yeah, for the family, the extended family. I mean, the Murdaugh name, whether you agree with what they did for the last 100 years, they did some good. There was some good in the family, and certainly they helped a lot of people, or they prosecuted some bad people. But the name is forever tarnished. One thing I said is, if we were all sitting in a restaurant, all of us, and the waiter screamed out table for four for Hitler, we just snap our necks. Well, the same thing will happen with Murdaugh. If you were sitting in a restaurant and somebody said a table for four for Murdaugh, we all would turn our heads. And so it's a name now that will live in infamy, certainly in South Carolina lore, but I think throughout the world.
Yep, for sure. The question, we obviously Murdaugh case. You have whole law practice in addition to all that work, and then you throw a book. Talk to us about what your days like juggling all of this.
Well, I don't feel like I'm living unless I pack 50 pounds of crap in a 25-pound bag. I don't do well on weekends. I'm sitting on my hands. I'm walking around the house. I make Renee nervous because I come in the kitchen and I stare at her if she's outside. I always have to be on the move. it starts obviously with working out and then answering emails. I'm fastidious about answering emails and text messages. I just feel like I'm in the service business. So I need to serve people. If I'm going to ask them for money or ask them to trust me, I need to communicate. And nothing makes a client more anxious than not hearing back from their attorney. So I'm constantly on my phone. That's a real problem. That's been a problem for my children. It's been a problem for my marriage. It's the worst habit that I developed. It's the best habit for me professionally. It's the worst habit personally for me. I've always prided myself that I was home. But when you're really looking at your phone all the time or you're getting on the laptop, you're really not home. And almost it's worse than actually not being home because, you're constantly have to tell somebody, look, I can't talk to you right now, or please quiet it down. And so, for me, if I'm on the move, I'm always fixing things. Like I just fixed the notebook here. It's not square with the corner of the table. So I'm very obsessive compulsive, and I like to have pens a certain way next to a notebook. So I do all these little things. If I see an open cabinet, I got to go fix the cabinet. If I open it up, I got to fix what's inside it. So, I just have a lot of things going on inside my head. It looks like if you were in Singapore, you ever see those intersections where like 20 intersections are coming together and everybody's on a bike and a moped and cars. Nobody's getting in any accidents, but it really looks like chaos. I love chaos. My friends say that I love tension and discord. So if the waters are calm, I'm not happy.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of not calm waters, were there any unexpected challenges for you, either in the world or emotionally, that happened during the publishing process?
Yeah, I mean it's much harder and takes much longer to write a book than I thought. Here I write for a living. I have to write long letters to the opposing counsel to state a position or ask for money or tell them why I don't want to pay money on behalf of a client. I got to write a brief for a judge or draft a complaint that it's very factually rich. So I figured, oh, sure, I'll just be able to sit down and write a book. And it's much different when you're writing a memoir than if you're just writing for the law. The prose are different, the cadence is different, the setup is different. Plus, you have to be honest. Not saying that I'm dishonest as a lawyer, but I have a tendency when you write to focus on the good stuff. You don't tell a judge the bad stuff. But to really have an honest book, you have to talk about the bad as much as you have to talk about the good because, you know, you can't learn until you feel the pain. And
Right.
I have felt a lot of pain in my life.
Well, and there's a huge difference in intellectual honesty and emotional honesty, right? It's a much heavier pail to carry, I think, for sure. Bonnie Matthews got the book, but I haven't read it yet. Can't wait to. When is the next book? Bonnie, gotta catch my breath, sister. You know,
Mimi, if you want to, Mimi, if you want to send a bobblehead to my office, I promise I will sign it and I will immediately send it back to you. Or if you're close enough by, come see me and just call and I'll meet you anywhere you want me to meet you.
Robin, an audiobook. Yes, we're getting a lot of questions about that. ED, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I got my first foray into that with David Moses at the end of the last Cup of Justice episode. I read um, a section on Liz and Mandy and how we got started with Cup of Justice. And then I read another section from the book when Alex came out in handcuffs at his first bond hearing. And, you know, it took a while. To read in cadence is much different than speaking in cadence. And so I'm kind of honing my style. Whitney's going to let me do a couple more book signings, and then after the first of the year, when I get back, it's probably a week and a half to 2 week process to do it right, and I plan to have it done by January 15th.
Bonnie, if we get down there, we can like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will meet you anywhere in Columbia or Lexington. All you got to do is call, or you come to my office, or send it to my office and I'll sign it and I'll send it back. And I'll put a personal note in there. If you tell me a little bit about yourself, then I definitely can make it sing.
Oh, David Ruth in the house.
Hey,
Greenwood.
and one more Buford and
Pennsylvania.
in Connecticut. And then, hopefully I start speaking to some of the schools. I'd like to speak to students. I'd like to speak to some law students who, are deciding whether they want to go with a big firm or they want to go and start a solo practice. I've done both, and there are positive and negatives of doing both. But, when I saw my father lose his job when I was 16 years old, that was another pivotal point in my life that I realized that I wanted to work for myself. I never wanted somebody to be able to come in and say, give me your pen, give me your pad. You're terminated. I have not lost many clients in my life, probably one or two. But if I did and lose more, I still have enough that I have a place to go sit and work and make a living. So it's harder today for a younger lawyer to do what I do because I do a lot of different types of law. Basically, the only law I don't do is tax and family law and estate law. But I do most every civil case that you can think of, whether it's catastrophic injury, personal injury, big commercial disputes, security fraud. And, I did some criminal law when I was younger. And then the Murdaugh case kind of um, caused me to say this may be something that I want to take on at the fourth quarter of my career. And so since the Murdaugh case, I've had, two murder cases, a DUI, homicide, um, and some other criminal fraud cases. So it's a mixed bag.
Awesome. Melissa's asking, do you still have a professional relationship with him?
I do. Obviously much better than I do with Harpootlian. I have high regard for Jim Griffin. He did a yeoman's job at that trial. If anybody watched the entire trial, he handled the lion's share of the legal arguments. He was writing the briefs or the motions at night, and he did a lot of the heavy lifting with the expert witnesses on the scientific stuff. I think he was very genuine in his closing argument when he cried, and I think he thinks that there is reasonable doubt regarding Alex's guilt. I do not believe there's reasonable doubt. I believe that if there's a retrial of Alex and obviously Russell Laffitte, I think they're all going to get convicted. I think Alex can be convicted on the murder evidence alone, take away all the financial crimes. I think that, as I said in my book, I laid out 14 different things of why I think he was absolutely guilty. But maybe because Jim is so close to Alex, they had a very close relationship. And but yeah, we don't. I don't pal around with him, but I take his call and he will take my call. I saw Dick and Jim about 3 weeks ago in a deposition, and it was very frosty between Dick and me. Um, no words were said, but you could tell that there's a lot of bad blood my way. Don't forget, Dick reported me to the bar twice for, you know, supposedly my statements that I made to the press and other things. So, um, I carry a lot of bad blood his way too.
A couple quick questions. Signing. Wait. So we'll keep everybody in the chat and to ericbland.com. You can sign up for that newsletter. I have on every just to make sure we're keeping everybody posted in real time. But to list the places again, we've got Charleston, Lexington, Columbia, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Boston, and
Hilton Head. Hilton Head. So we're also doing some things where if books are carried in certain bookstores, Whitney and Caitlin Marcolette, who is also in charge of some of my media, she's on here. She lives in Denver. Wonderful, wonderful woman. She came up with the idea that I'm going to go to these bookstores and just sign some of the books on the shelves. Um, and that could be a way that people can get it. But I really want to make a personalized message to everybody who takes the time to come to a book signing. I don't say the same thing, I address it to the person and, or somebody else. So it means a lot to me. If people are going to take the time to buy my book and read it, which is an extraordinary thing. The joke was, I tell Whitney, we're not going to sell 5 books. I don't think 3 people are going to come to the book signing event and, 60 some people came, but I just don't have a lot of confidence that people think that I'm interesting or they're going to want to, read my book or whatever. But that's here or there. But Caitlin had a good question. She said, Eric, what is the best advice you could give to a young lawyer or student eager to begin their career? The best advice I can give is bet on yourself. Um, don't let anybody else dissuade you from what you want to do. Get up, dust yourself off. If you fall, you are going to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect, but have that eye going forward that you have confidence in yourself, you believe in yourself, and don't let anybody tell you you can't do anything. So whatever your dreams are, there's no straight road. You may detour a little bit, and that's what life is all about. I said in the beginning, when Whitney couldn't get on and we're doing this hookup by phone, I said, it's like the tango, remember from Scent of the Woman, you get tangled up and you tango your way out of it. Well, that's what life is. How do you tango your way out of when you're in a dangle?
wait, that's related to one of my questions. What's a skill you have always wanted to learn? Not
Dancing. Absolutely. I have lead feet. In fact, Renee, for one of our anniversaries, bought us a dancing class, and I didn't do it. I really would love to be able to dance and sing. I have the worst voice of anybody that ever lived. It's so bad. Um, so if I could sing and dance, um, and also listen to my wife more, she wants to talk more and tell me things, and sometimes I'm not a good listener to her. I would be a better husband, really, is what I would say.
Yes, great advice. I agree. David had a great question. If you want to place a picture filing a document, Peter Warren was important to the case and placed in a museum to commemorate the impact in the Murdaugh Valley. That's a good one.
The picture of me pointing at Alex and saying it's time for him to get comfortable getting uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think that sent the message to Alex, his lawyers, all the other people that have facilitated his fraud, and all the people that assisted him, that Ronnie and I were not going to stop until we got redress for at least all the clients that we represented. And we did. We represented 7 of the victims, and we got redress for all of them. They all were made as whole as they could be, some more whole than they would be if he had not committed the fraud. But I think what I'm most proud of is that I believed in Creighton Wooders so much so that I was willing to go out on TV and advocate for the state when naturally I'm a defense lawyer and I don't really have that affinity for the prosecution. I'm more aligned with the defense, that they're not meeting the burden of proof, the state, that they're wrongfully charging or overcharging. I think taking on Alan Dershowitz and Mark Garagos, and certainly the fights that I had with Sarah Aziri on TV, I'm proud not because it was combative, but because I stood up for, I think, Maggie and Paul. um, because they were being forgotten. It was the Alex show for a long time and the Dick show. And, a mother and a son got killed.
Um, Quick question. What's the first concert you ever attended?
First concert I ever attended was Bob Dylan. My mother drove me to the Spectrum. I was 15 years old. She drove me to the Spectrum and I saw Bob Dylan and she waited in the parking lot and I came out. She waited 2.5 hours and I went and got in the car and she drove me home. Loved Bob Dylan. I saw George Jones when I was 17 years old. No Show Jones. He was like 2 hours late. And then in college, I was a bodyguard for a lot of concerts in Florida. I saw Billy Joel, the Rolling Stones, and I was on the stage. I got hit by a bottle at the Rolling Stones concert. So, and just recently, Renee and I have started to go to a lot of different concerts. So, we love the band that sings Wagon Wheel. We go around and see them, and the Old Crow Medicine crew or whatever they're called, and we like folk music, and sometimes we go to Bill's Pick and Parlor in West Columbia. I love bluegrass.
Awesome. What is your go-to comfort food when you are stressed?
PB&J.
There you go.
Yeah, PB&J. I love on whole wheat, just a nice thin peanut butter and jelly. If I was on a desert island and I had one food that I would eat, I think I could eat peanut butter and jelly any minute of the day.
Here we go. Man of the class, ladies and gentlemen. If you could relive one day of your life, what would it be?
The day that my dad died, I would take in more than what I did because I had to calm my mother down. He was in St. Francis Hospital in Greenville, and they just told he had 3 bouts of cancer, and he could have lived a lot longer, but he would have to go on dialysis, and he didn't want to do it. It was going to be very cumbersome at the time. He already had a colostomy bag, and because he had bladder cancer, and I turned to my dad and I said, Dad, is this how you want to live? And he said, no. And the truth of the matter is, I said, Dad, have you had enough? And he said, yeah, I think I'm ready to go. I mean, he was as lucid could be. And I said, well, just tell the doctors that you're in pain. And so um, we called the doctor in. The doctor and he said, I'm in pain. They gave him more medicine. And so, and this is a true story. I'm not going to tell you who the doctor was, but at 5 o'clock, I was with my mother and I turned to the doctor and I said, I'm going to take my mother to dinner and I'm going to be back at 6:30. Do you understand? I'm going to be back at 6:30. And my dad is in a lot of pain. And sure enough, when we came back, my dad had passed away. And so, the doctors take a Hippocratic oath to, do no harm, do no pain. And I have such respect for that doctor. No, he didn't kill my father. He eased my father into saying it's okay for him to go on and my mother to be on her own. I think the only reason he stuck around for 16 years with 3 different bouts of cancer is that he didn't want to leave my mother alone. And I promised him that we would always take care of her. And, she's in an Alzheimer's facility now. But I think if I could relive that day and suck in more of my father, that would be something I want to do.
That's really beautiful. And I think it's wonderful. It seems like you all were in this unspoken agreement that it's time. And
It's a beautiful thing. When you can die on your own terms and you've made peace with your life. One of my favorite sayings is a life well lived is long enough. And my father lived a good life. Did he achieve his dreams? No, he did not. Um, my father didn't make a lot of money, but he made sure we were educated. So he wanted us to live the dreams that he couldn't live, and he knew that my brothers and I were successful, and that was enough for him. Um, so the sad part for me was my father couldn't live the dreams that he wanted to, but he lived them through his son. And I always tell the story, he was so excited if my name was in the newspaper or I was on the news, and he would call up and he would come to my trials and, motions hearings. It was the payoff for the sacrifice that he did to educate us. And, you know, it, um, I just hope I can do that for my children if they ever need it.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. And I think, what you've done and how you write about your father in the book is really the way that he lives on, right? Telling those stories and those lessons that he learned. And I know he's super, super proud of you. Um,
The sad part is, my mother got dementia right when Murdaugh started. So none of this resonated with her. And, even over Thanksgiving, I took the book to her and, she was nonplussed about it. I showed her some pictures, but she went on to something else. And, if my father could have been around to see how it all unfolded, I mean, I pinch myself. I mean, the truth of the matter is, to be on TV and have all these beautiful, wonderful people sitting here listening to me, and, the Today Show and Craig Melvin interviewing me and Cuomo every night for 2 months straight, and all the documentaries, Netflix, HBO. And, we've been in over 4,000, 5,000 newspaper articles. It's just, if I could have shared it with them, I swear to you, the guy would have walked on air.
Love that. It's wonderful for the people that you love to see that. I was telling Eric, when I got the car from the first book thing, my 7-year-old who y'all met a second ago, first thing he said was, "Wow, Mom, people really like hugging Miss Eric." It's just so great to see.
I'm a real touchy feely. I'm a touchy feely guy, so I love to hug people. I hug everybody when I meet them, and I'm probably too old school. I'm probably that creepy old guy now because I'm like that old guy. I'm not a young guy anymore. So like, why is this guy touching me, kind of thing. But I hug men. I hug women. Danny and I kiss each other on the cheek every time we see each other. You know, if I say I love you, he says I love you more. It's our favorite saying that we say to each other, and we talk every single day and tell each other we love them. And because you just don't have a lot of time left, and life's too difficult to get mired down in bullshit and grievances and things like that.
Yep. Landry Foster has sung so beautiful. All my dreams became my son's dreams the minute he was born. So I believe your dad's dreams came true.
Oh, that's so sweet. That is really nice, Landry. Very nice.
Okay, here we go. My next question: what is your all-time favorite movie?
Oh boy. I love Godfather, so I like keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Um, I love that. I love Rocky, anything Rocky quote where he said, I'm not giving in, I can do more, don't call the fight, those kind of things. But I probably, I like a lot of the Big Lebowski. Uh, that's one of my favorite movies. Ronnie and I always call each other, we do the dude quotes, and Walter, I'm Walter from that. But that's a good question. I need to think about that. What is my all-time favorite movie quote?
Love that. What about the most memorable book you've ever read?
Oh, without question, For Whom the Bell Tolls. I'm a Hemingway fan, so The Old Man in the Sea. I do like Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, um, but I love anything by John Krakauer. He's one of my favorite authors, and so, but yeah, I'm a absolute Hemingway nut.
Yeah, same. Krakauer would be really cool to get on the podcast. Who do we know, everyone? Let's get it connected. Let's make it happen. Okay. If you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
I like Batman. I like his tools that he has in his belt. Superman can fly and he has strength. But Batman is a superhero, but not really the superhero that he doesn't go through water. He doesn't fly as fast as Superman. He's not Spider-Man that can, you know, but he's got tools that he can use in his belt. And I like that about a man. You better have your tool belt. I always talk about a tool belt. You know,
Mhm.
I live outside the box. You better find a workaround. Um, you know, don't take 199 no's to get a yes. That's who I am. So really make sure you know um, how to get a workaround, how to get out of a problem. So, I mean, that's a big thing for me is getting out of problems. Um, so have a tool belt.
You're in.
Yeah, you got to have a tool belt.
I think Superman's great. I grew up with two brothers, so I love superheroes. But I always found Superman kind of boring because it was like you knew nothing was gonna defeat him, you know? Like where Bruce Wayne was a man.
Right. He's a normal man.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Were there any famous defendants who were convicted that you believe are innocent? Good question.
Hmm. Let me think about that. That's interesting. Famous defendants. Well, certainly OJ was guilty, so I wouldn't say, you know, he was innocent. He was guilty of sin. Um,
What about Menendez?
yeah, uh, yeah, I do believe that they weren't innocent. I believe that they probably weren't guilty of first degree murder, and you know that they were abused as children. So they've certainly done enough time. Um, you know, certainly anybody that we're going to interview somebody in the coming weeks who was in prison for 22 years and was released on the Innocence Project. Noah Pines, who I interviewed a couple of weeks ago on Good Skill, talked about it, and we're going to interview him. And the first question I want to ask him is, what does it feel like to wake up every single day in prison knowing you're innocent? And, you know, I want to know what it feels like. Do you want to scream? And how do you have the fortitude to go on 22 years? And then, by the way, in Georgia, you can't sue the state for compensation. They don't give you compensation for wrongful conviction. So I want to find out how he goes forward today, why you're not filled with rage and vindictiveness and you want retribution against anybody. And the person I think you're going to find is at peace. And I just can't imagine being that strong for
Yeah.
22 years to keep fighting for your innocence and then finally achieving it.
Yeah, that's some personal growth. That's pretty extraordinary. Um, what is your favorite memory from the past year?
My favorite memory for the past year, well, it's a year and a week, was when I argued for Alex's sentence on November 29th. Um, I think it's some of the best legal arguments and not arguing, yelling that I've done. Um, Seeing all the victims get up and speak, seeing Ginger Hadwin speak, you know, Gloria's sister. When I met her, she wouldn't even open her mouth outside of me. I mean, she just was a very quiet woman. Seeing her being able to speak, seeing Mrs. Pickney speak, um, just watching the tenacity of Mark Tinsley, you know,
Mhm.
the guy's unrelenting, and then Justin Bamberg, but really seeing the victims being able to speak for themselves. You know, we did so many different press conferences, and then even Tony, you know, Tony Satterfield being able to speak in the camera. I promise you, when I met him, he he just wasn't somebody that could articulate how he felt. It just wasn't something that came natural to him, and so seeing the victims grow was probably the most rewarding thing for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking of speaking, Caitlin asked, the first moment you knew you wanted to practice law and your natural talent with law, speaking, negotiating. When did you first recognize that in yourself?
Um, it started when I got bigger, when I was 17 and 18 years old, and I always had a mouth. It was my greatest asset and my greatest detriment. It is today. You know, my words are, you know, my mouth's my weapon, my words are my currency, but nobody would listen to me. But when I started to get bigger, and I would speak, people would stop and take notice. And I had an ability to be able to get to the point quickly. Um, I can, I'm not, as, I'm not, I wasn't nervous in talking in front of people. And that's a big thing. Um, to be able to talk when the microphone comes on or the camera's light comes on. So, I had a mouth, and my uncle said to me, why don't you use that mouth positively instead of getting you in trouble? Maybe think about being a lawyer. And so that was really the first time my uncle Alvin kind of put that thought in my head about being a lawyer.
Pretty good advice.
Yeah, yeah,
Served you well.
yeah.
If you could have argued in one legal case in history, which one would you have?
I would want to argue the immunity case for the President of the United States. I think it was a bad decision. I would want to argue why we don't have a king, we have a president. I would want to do a very serious Supreme Court argument like that. Certainly, if I could have been Thurgood Marshall arguing Brown versus Topeka Board of Education that separate but equal was wrong. All of those major decisions, I would love to have argued and been in the shoes of some real lions. But I think this one decision about art, because I love politics, when I speak about um, anything but Bland Weekly Updated, I could talk politics forever. It drives Renee crazy because I all I want to do is talk politics. I watch TV, and despite what everybody thinks, I don't just watch CNN, MSNBC. I watch Fox News. I try to hear it from all sides so that I can talk as intelligently as I can. But I think that immunity decision is really one of the most pernicious decisions that the Supreme Court has given in a long time. And I think it's almost as bad as the Dred Scott decision in 1859 when they said that blacks are only counted for voting purposes, census purposes, excuse me, as 2/3 of a person. I think that was the worst decision in the history of our Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Dylan, what's the favorite chapter in your book and why?
My best friend's a felon.
Stories to it.
It is so good. It says a lot about who the kind of people I like to be with. I have nothing against lawyers. Yes, I sue them, but I have high regard for lawyers. And just so everybody knows, you can't tell a lawyer joke in front of me, or I'll rip you a new ass. I just don't like it. Um, I don't tell jokes about doctors or things. I'm not a joke guy. But I don't like lawyer jokes. But I'm not friends with lawyers. I didn't grow up with lawyers. I didn't grow up privileged. I grew up in a working class neighborhood in Norristown, PA, outside of Conshohocken, and people that worked hard for a living that had to make ends meet. We, I told Whitney, I was guaranteed a new pair of sneakers and a basketball every year. New pair of sneakers for Hanukkah, a basketball for my birthday. That was it. That's all my dad could afford. And so I grew up with people that had to live on a budget, that worried about could their car make it down to Philadelphia from Norristown. So for me, I was more comfortable growing up with the people that made me feel good about myself. I had people that protected me because I was a skinny kid. There's a picture of me in the book. That's what I looked like in ninth grade. I was the proverbial 98-pound weakling, and I had a lot of friends. And so people who work hard for a living and wear their heart on their sleeve, and Big Danny, he's as genuine can be. So, for me to meet somebody like that 15 years ago and enrich my life. I mean, we do everything together. We work out, we go golfing. Our wives, we go to vacations together. We've been all over the world, and you name it. Um, and I could tell Danny anything, and he tells me everything. So, I'm blessed with that kind of friendship. So that chapter means so much to me.
Yeah, I love that. It's a beautiful story, and really excited to have him on the podcast. Who was your favorite fictional lawyer?
Well, fictional lawyer. I mean, I love Matlock. I learned evidence in law school through Matlock, and we actually love the new Matlock show with Kathy Bates. She's amazing in it. She's a lawyer, so um, I like I liked L.A. Law. You know, I liked the lawyers on there about some of the things that they do. I liked Boston Law with you know, who's the guy from Star Trek? William Shatner. But yeah, my favorite lawyers though are real lawyers. I really had high regard for lawyers like Melvin Belli and people who ended up on the Supreme Court, Hugo Black and William Douglas. Really, really high regard. And the lawyers that I worked with, Bernie Grimm and Doug Wood at the Washington, D.C. Public Defender's Office. But my favorite lawyer of all time is Ronnie Richter. He is what a lawyer should. He is what a lawyer should be. He speaks eloquently. Um, he's well read, well researched, very methodical. Um, not at all like me, who shoots first with the mouth and see where it takes you. He's what a lawyer should be. He's a lawyer's lawyer.
He is. Ronnie is absolutely incredible and just a brilliant,
He is.
brilliant attorney.
He is much smarter than me.
Oh, goodness. Speaking of law, if you could go back and relive the first time you argued in court, one, what was that like? Were you nervous?
I was.
Yeah. And what would you do differently?
Um, I had a case in front of um, Don Rushing, former state court judge. And in our court system, they argue just tons of motions all day long. And so it was a courtroom full of people. I had just come down. It wasn't really one of my first arguments. It was my first argument in South Carolina. And he heard my accent. It was a strong Northern Philly accent. And I represented some homeowners that had flooding happen. And it was a case against Nationwide Insurance Company. And of course, Nationwide denied coverage, and I was suing for them to get coverage. And it was a normal argument for any other day would be 15 minutes at the most. Well, it turned into like an hour and a half, and he was drilling me with questions, and I was being humiliated in front of an entire courtroom full of lawyers. And I think I did the smartest thing. And there's another lawyer, Ted Von Keller, who was in the audience, and he says it to this day. It was the smartest thing he's ever seen a lawyer do. And I didn't do it because I thought it was a smart move. I just had enough. I said, Judge, I think I have said enough, and I'm not going to say any more because the more I open my mouth, the more I'm hurting my client. So I'm going to just ask you to rule at this point in time. Um, I probably should have continued on, and I probably should have argued better, but it got very personal, and I was getting pissed off. And I was a big guy back then. I mean, I'm not certainly not a big guy anymore, but I was a really big guy back then, and I had the normal young guy testosterone and all, and I was back talking to the judge, and I shouldn't have. So that was one of my first arguments. So I wish I had that again.
Awesome. What is something that you wish more people knew about the law, or like a law that people misunderstand a lot?
Um, for instance, just on the Jussie Smalley case, the law has to have finality, and it has to be able to you want to see that it's applied equally once a rule of law is laid down. And so in the Jussie Smalley, I think was his name, he's the guy from Empire. He he was uh, he lied about being hung. He had a noose around his mouth and had some people throw white powder, and he blamed white people for trying to lynch him. And he cut a deal that should have never been cut by his lawyer with a what I consider to be a crooked prosecutor. But the deal was that he wouldn't get charged, after the police tried to find and wasted all those resources for a week and a half. And it turned out that he fabricated the whole thing. But that was the deal that was cut. Well, there was such a public outcry that the attorney general from Illinois came in and re-prosecuted him. And just last week, the Supreme Court reversed that. Now, I dislike Jussie Smalley, But I 100% agree with the Supreme Court reversing it, because when you cut a deal with the prosecutor and that deal is done, you can't get re-prosecuted again. So I believe in the consistency of the law, the finality of the law, and the equal application of the law.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you deal with that a lot, having to, just in your personal life, having to deal with navigating, having total misconceptions of how the law should be interpreted? Or,
Yeah, I mean, here's a saying that I tell clients all the time. If you want to get screwed, go to court. If you want justice, go to a whorehouse. Um, you can't get justice in court. It doesn't happen the way you think. Right and wrong doesn't really come down. The law is a difficult thing at times, and the fickle nature of 12 people that you don't know. 12 people that are being asked to sit maybe for a week or two at a time for $15 a day. And listen, we think our problems are everybody hates every lawyer except their own. Everybody hates every case except their own. And we think our case is so important, but to somebody who's making $15 a day sitting on the jury, wondering if they're going to get fired because they're not doing work for 2 weeks, or how am I going to cook for my kids? They're home. When do I pick up my kid from dance class? How do I get my kid? You know, you can't get justice in court. And that's why I don't try a lot of cases anymore. My justice that I get from my clients is negotiated. It's in mediations. It's by settlement. There's more ways to lose money in the law than to gain money. And if I can fashion the outcome, I do it all the time. Um, if I'm talking, I'm winning. Uh, that's the way I view it. So the law doesn't work the way we would want it to. Right and wrong isn't what happens in court, unfortunately.
uh-huh. What, as we wrap up the hour, what are you most excited about coming up this year?
Just getting to meet a lot of the people that have listened to Mandy, Liz, and me over the past, 3 years. Uh, People that from different areas of the country, people who've read my book. I'm excited about, traveling with Renee. She had such a good time on Saturday, and people like her more than they like me. That's fine. You know, she's a really great person, and she deserves a lot of acknowledgement and respect, because it's not easy living with an alpha dog, and it's not easy living with a litigator. The hardest thing in the world is for me not to litigate, and I'll litigate anything, whether it's what are we going to have for dinner or what TV show should we watch. And she's had to really hone her counter argument skills. This is a very pretty, soft-spoken Southern girl, a debutante, and she can go toe to toe with a Philadelphia lawyer.
Love that. Love that. We are headed up to Philadelphia, Bonnie. Um, so we will keep you posted on dates on that, and maybe we'll add more tour dates. If you guys have cities that we need to be in, let us know for sure. Um, but thank you all for your support. I mean, it means the world. It was so incredible to see everyone at the book signing, and just get to celebrate Eric for all the hard work. And you all are just phenomenal, and your support means everything.
It means everything to me. I mean, I was 60 years, almost 60 years old when the Murdahl stuff started, little 59, and didn't know what the next 4 years, 5 years, 6 years of my career was going to look like. I was talking to Renee about, well, what am I going to do when I drop the mic? And you guys have totally given me a new lease on life. I'm more excited to get to work every day than I can remember when I was 30 years old. I can't wait to meet everybody and do what's necessary to make this book successful. And I love the Good Skill podcast, but my favorite thing is talking every week about current events. If I could do that for the rest of my life and be on the microphone talking about politics, sports, and everything that goes on in life, I'd be the happiest guy in the world. So I'm so grateful that even one person wants to listen to me or talk to me.
Love it. Thank y'all for being here. It just means the world to us. There will be more chats and deep signings and all of the things. So let us know where we need to be if it's not currently on the list, and definitely make sure to head over to theericbland.com. Sign up for that newsletter. You'll get updates around everything going on, so you can be in the loop. And just a huge hug to all of you. I can tell you, as someone who gets to have the privilege of being behind the scenes with Eric and his team, he is just so incredibly grateful for you all, and just touched that you have invested your time and energy
Yeah,
into supporting him.
people, this is 4 o'clock in the afternoon. People are getting off work. People are having to pick up kids. They're got to go to the grocery store. They got to pay bills. They got to cook dinner, and they're just sitting here listening to me. I mean, if that doesn't, make you humble, nothing will.
It's wonderful. Listen, Lauren, I'll come up there and eat some crab up in Maryland.
Oh, heck yeah.
Put it on the list.
Well, thanks a lot, guys.
TheEricBland.com, and stay tuned for more events like this. We appreciate y'all so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.